Welcome to the Extra Podcast. My name's Greg, and I am hosting this episode.
Mm-hmm.
Joining me around our table today is Pastor Andy,
Hey Greg, it's good to be with you today.
Pastor Jonathan,
I'm in love.
and Pastor Jeff.
Hi, Greg.
It's good to be here today.
We brought Jonathan here today to give us some feedback regarding why it is that some worship music sounds an awful lot like Jesus is our boyfriend.
Don't get me started. Oh, that's awful. That's so bad. Sweet Holy Spirit.
Jonathan, it's great to have you here.
It's good to be here.
Is this the first time you guys have been on the podcast together?
Yes.
Have you been on the podcast before, Jonathan?
Oh,
in
yeah.
my absence.
I took your stead.
Whoa.
And I was pretty spectacular.
Wow, that's like...
Greg, did you mention what episode this is?
273.
Okay,
Episode
sorry.
273.
Sorry guys, we can continue now.
Oh,
Sure
yeah.
got that in there.
Good.
For those of you keeping notes at home, it's episode 273.
I love that for some reason we have to say it every time.
Well, I
In
thought
case
I
you
could
didn't
get
know, last time was 272.
That's a lot of podcasts. That's 273 weeks of podcasts.
Hey, what's
My
going to
life
be
I
the
will
like?
never get back.
What's going to be the 300th episode? What? We
I don't
usually
know.
do something fun every 100 episodes. What are we going to do this
I
time?
think somebody out there who is involved in baking or cooking of some variety should take that upon themselves as an opportunity
So
to show your appreciation. Sorry.
you have 27 weeks to plan something. Let us know
Something delicious.
what the plan is, and
300.
we'll go from there. Are we going to film that one again? We filmed 1 and 200.
Let's not.
No, you're done with the filming.
No, we have a wonderful faces for radio.
Yeah, I was just going to say we're radio faces.
Jonathan, it is good to have you here today. Thanks for coming along.
Oh, my pleasure.
You've significantly increased the ginger factor in the room right now.
We are sitting at about 25%.
Yep. And so we're looking forward to some of that ginger wit.
Some of that, ginger flair. Ginger temper. That's about all I got to offer.
So I have at least one worship-related question that was sent in, and then I'm sure these guys are going to have some questions for you as well. Should we start with the
Is
one
this
that
an
was
interrogation?
sent in?
No, the first one that I have for you is that
Yeah, Is
the why do we-
in all honesty, I played
no.
that song because it's look, it's
Incredible.
indicative of that one's a really bad one, okay?
Yeah.
Because the song just repeats over and over again, and it sounds very much like someone spinning in the field with their arms outstretched, singing about their love for their girlfriend.
Mm-hmm.
But applying it to the Holy Spirit, you seem to take issue with that. Do you not love the Holy Spirit?
Well, that's exactly it.
And then there are other songs. Seriously,
No,
there are other songs
yeah.
that there was one out a while ago on the radio that I heard. My kids sort of liked until I put a stop to that.
Not
I
allowed
did.
to like that.
Well, it's that one where it. Have you? How's it go? I can't remember.
I don't know.
Love the way you hold me.
Oh.
Oh, that
In
one.
your arms, I'm always gonna be.
Yeah.
But something
Well,
like that.
that
You're
basic.
just a meanie.
It's not
No,
helpful
it's
because
just-
that's like 60% of the songs that come out nowadays. It's kind of depressing.
So I have two questions for you. Number one, why do you have an issue with those? And number two, what is what's going on in the Christian subculture to lead people to write music that way? You're a musician. You like
Yeah.
to write music.
I'm not very good at it, but yeah. No, I think that there's a spectrum obviously when it comes to how you view faith in general. There's the intellectual extreme where it's all just it's a mind practice, and then there's the emotional heart side of faith. Obviously, healthy faith finds its balance in the middle. What I find is so many songwriters and so many Christians, their faith is built on an emotional experience, and these songs kind of best exemplify and typify that experience.
So is that a bad thing to have your faith?
No, obviously emotion is important. Emotion is critical in your faith. I mean, I'm an emotional person, but where your emotion is rooted is really important. Does that make sense? Where your emotion is rooted? So I actually wrote a blog recently. I called the blog.
You wrote a blog?
I wrote a blog. I didn't publish or put it anywhere because I felt like
if there's a blog that hasn't been published,
I just wrote on a piece of paper.
We call that a diary.
Yeah, I wrote a diary. I wrote a diary entry. Well, no, I wrote it
Dear
with
blog.
I wrote it with the intent to publish it. We used to write blogs for the North.
Remember
webpage,
that?
but It's a while ago.
remember when we blogged?
You could still post it on our
I could.
webpage.
My problem was it was a little prickly.
Okay, so tell us the content of it.
Basically, I called the blog "Boyfriend Jesus," and basically the idea is that so many of us, when we sing songs, what we sing could basically be interchanged with any typical love song. There's some really, really poor songwriting. Like, I don't know if I should get into specifics, but basically, there's songs you can sing that if you took it out of the church context, you more or less could sing that to a boy or a girl.
Come on, man, give us a song.
I love the way you hold me.
Yeah, well,
In your arms, I'll always
and then there's some
be
that are
so
even like
happy
borderline
and every day.
inappropriate.
And I love you. Make everything special, and I was
You know what?
thinking
That hurts,
about
man.
you
That's one
all
of my
the
favorite
time.
songs. It's unbelievable.
No, seriously, that is a song that you could. He's right. You could lift that out, or this song that I just played.
I'm
he
in love.
replaced the word Holy Spirit with I don't know, your wife's name.
Yeah.
You could take it and easily do it. Here's my issue. Before you jump into your blog,
Yeah.
my issue with this is that the kind of love that we are talking about when we talk about God is not erotic
Exactly.
in the sense that it's that it's a romantic kind of description. Like, and I understand why it is that people write that, because the most intense love that we sometimes feel is that romance feel.
Yes.
And I'm just saying that the love that I have for Jesus is far deeper than any romantic love. I love Jesus on a more serious level, a more committed, long-term level, and to convey him as if he's my boyfriend or that kind of thing doesn't just turn men off, which of course it does, but it also doesn't convey the depth and richness of the love that we have for God.
Yeah. And even the other way around, like God doesn't like romantically love you. He doesn't want to date you. That's not a biblical idea anyway. God doesn't eros that's the Greek word for like romantic love. He doesn't eros you. He agapes you. Like he has a self-sacrificial love, or even like there's a brotherly love we have for one another. But it's not
It's a Greek word phileo, and it's used of God too.
Yeah, but not the erotic one, right? The eros. Yeah. And yet our songs, because in English we only have one word for love, our songs kind of they get really gray.
But the Christian church has struggled with this. It's not just now, because like if you read back in the history of interpretation of the book of the Song of Solomon, for example, the church has often interpreted that to be God's love for Israel.
Sure.
Or people present day, God's love for his church, which, by the way, it is not talking that way. What it's talking about is a man's love for his woman, his wife. And I'm telling you that the language that's used there is veiled language regarding physical body parts at places, right? And I could even read you texts, and you could
some less
be
so
like,
veiled.
Oh dear. Yeah, but it's not talking. But the church has struggled with this because we want to express the depth of love that we have for God, and the depth of love that He has for us, and so we appeal quite often to romantic notions, and that image conditions our actual discipleship. That's what I hear you saying.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's exactly it. Yeah. It's kind of...
So you wish it would stop?
It irks me. It just irks me. I mean, let me preface this again. I've spoken to a lot of people who aren't bothered by it. The vast majority of people who aren't bothered by the romantic language in our songs, generally, as a generalization, have been raised in the church and are used to that kind of language. Whether or not they get it or not doesn't really matter. They're just used to that kind of language. But the vast majority of people who are new to the church hear the songs that we're singing about being romanced by God, and God, like, you know, us having an encounter in the secret, in the quiet place with God, where he wants to touch us in the secret, quiet place. And they listen to that and they're like, I'm sorry, what?
No, it could
Who is-
culturally it conveys something that you don't intend.
No, not
right?
at all. Yeah. And I just don't think that kind of language is what, I don't think it's helpful. I think it's just confusing. Especially especially for guys.
But you're not against emotions.
Not against emotions. No, I think that when you, like, and I've told this to our worship teams all the time, like when the truth and when the truth of the gospel and the love of God, when you understand that, there is a visceral emotional response that should take place. It
That
just
involves-
sounds different than I'm in love. It's just not that. That's not the response that comes to my mind. The emotional response. Do you know what I mean?
I do know what you mean. The thing is, though, is I also know that if you had a wish for our church, I think that I've heard you express before that you wish that people would be more physically demonstrative in their worship
Totally.
in our church and
Yep.
more willing to express themselves.
I think it's important. I really do. I think that, again, if you understand the gospel, that the goodness of the gospel, what God has done for you, like, I don't understand how you can stand there and cross your arms. Like, I don't get it. How unless you're
I think that people, when they come to
Ignoring it?
church, are just feel. I mean, honestly, I think people, when they attend a local church, it's usually on a Sunday morning. They show up with thoughts of the pancakes they
Totally.
either are going to eat or just ate, and how difficult it was to get
Those
the kids out of the
kids,
house. And if you're single, you know, who is in the room, and is that guy I like or a girl? Are they here today?
sure.
That sort of stuff, so that our minds are occupied by the stuff of life, not
Yeah.
necessarily by thoughts of the gospel.
Yep.
I do think we probably would be better served if we started on Sunday mornings with, at least, you know, those of us who are coming to church, instead of hurrying, maybe take just 5 minutes and read a scripture text and just give ourselves to Thanksgiving.
Yeah. Just prepare yourself, right? Prepare yourself
Yep.
for the gathered community. I mean, our services don't last long. If they were all day, yeah, we could kind of take our time, you know, getting mentally and emotionally prepared. But, like, I think it's important to come to church ready to worship, ready to be together, ready to hear from the word. If you don't come ready, you're like the first 10 minutes just ends up being kind of like a warm up, and you miss out on, on really engaging. I don't know.
But you find that the response that people have after the sermon, which is, you know, so we take you into the scriptures and we talk to you about the gospel and about God's plans and what he's doing in the world and how that applies to your life. We talk about all those sorts of things. You find that the singing after the sermon is
Always.
different?
Yeah, always. It's I don't know. It's kind of funny being on the other side and getting to people watch. Not that I'm people watching when I'm worship leading, but you know, you notice. I mean, you've said this when you're preaching. You notice how people are responding. You notice when they're staring at you and you feel like a dancing monkey. And then you notice when people are into it and people are engaged. And very, very rarely after a sermon are people standing just kind of, people have heard. They've heard the word. They've had an encounter, and then they're ready to emotionally respond. Yeah, which is always, as a worship leader, that's the dream. When people are ready to respond and you strum your chord and people are ready to go, like, oh, that's, yeah.
Have you ever had people go to other churches and come back and say the other church is different in the sense that, they're all responding and stuff? Do you understand what I'm saying? Like,
No.
I've had people go away and say, the worship at that other church is this way and it's so great because they're reflecting on how engaged everybody is. Part of the reason I asked the question is it seems to me that that's the issue in the end, that it's just a matter of engagement. Like, it's not, it doesn't have to do with the way the drums are being played, although they can be helpful. It doesn't have to do with the way the guitar is playing, even though that can be helpful. It really, ultimately, the worship in a local church comes down to how people are going to engage or not. Like, if the entire body of Northview decided to come to church and to reflect on the gospel and respond, I'll tell you what, we'd be louder
Oh yeah.
than we are, and we'd probably be a lot more physically effusive in our
Yep.
praise to God.
Yep.
The fact that we're not is probably evidence that we haven't really thought about it very much, or maybe it's our tradition too. I understand
Sure.
that.
Yeah. No, and historically, Mennonites have not been a very expressive people group. So yeah, and
You're a Mennonite
I
too,
am, I
saying
am.
that like you.
I am a Mennonite.
Giesbrecht,
Oh yeah,
blue blood.
full blooded. Yeah. So and the reality is like, a lot of the Mennonite heritage. We've if you've studied Mennonite history, there's a kind
Been
of
to the museum.
yeah, right. So you basically know everything. It's actually kind of cool. I like that museum anyway. But there's
Oh, there's a
an aside.
shout out for the Mennonite
Yeah.
Museum.
Hala Mennonite Museum. No, one of the things that happened in the Mennonite movement is that pietist movement, right? Where the that's where the MB Church really found its starting point. Because to be a Mennonite before that movement was kind of almost as much a cultural thing as it was a religious thing. So for me personally, it doesn't really surprise me that historically Mennonites weren't very engaged, because most Mennonites weren't very engaged with their faith. It was a cultural, familial faith as opposed to a personal understanding of the gospel and responding, right? So
Right.
anyway, we're going on a couple of tangents.
No, I just
here.
I think it's interesting. It's good to
Yep.
hear you talk about it.
I have another question from a listener that has to do with worship,
Oh, this is an interrogation.
Christian music, all that good stuff, and then we'll get into another topic that probably doesn't have to do with all of this. Here's the question. When we ask for fire in our worship songs, is that a good thing? What does the fire symbolize?
Oh yeah. Fire. So that's yeah. I take So I'll show my cards now, and then I'll show how I get there. I think for me personally, the fire imagery is a little. I take more issue with the boyfriend imagery than the fire imagery. I think that the fire imagery, what it's trying to pull at, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think what it's trying to pull at is either the idea of fire representing like a burning passion, which is more our cultural take on when we say like, my heart's on fire for something, like you get it. You get what I mean. It's like extremely passionate for something. And I think people try to couch it that it's a biblical idea based off of like the Acts 2, where you have the tongues of fire come down on the disciples. So it's like, oh, fire's a good thing. It's a biblical image and it means passion. So you've kind of morphed these two metaphors or images, and you've kind of put it into a song now. And so now anything can burn, and it's actually a good thing. And it's
Consuming
kind of funny.
fire.
Consuming fire, I think, is referencing
how's
the
that
Old
one
Testament.
go?
Consuming fire, fan into flame, a passion for your name.
We haven't sang that in a while.
No. But
Maybe
see, the
you should
consuming
branch
fire
out from the 6 songs that you always play.
Oh, goodness gracious.
We're gonna
No,
get some emails. Yeah,
Yeah, I know, for real.
tell him more. We need a minimum 8.
No, I think the consuming fire is actually referencing the Old Testament idea, which I actually think that one I don't think we sing correctly. Because the consuming fire in the Old Testament was like it was a judgment fire.
Well, that language
Like-
actually comes from Hebrews.
And
In the
Deuteronomy,
in the
yes.
New Testament, it comes from Hebrews. Right, our Lord is a consuming fire. So, like, it is a judgment.
It is a
image,
judgment
right?
fire, yeah.
Right. And that's the
Referencing
same
like
thing.
referencing what went ahead of Israel, like to judge the lands ahead of Israel, right? In Deuteronomy.
And the other, but a lot of people will use the language as a cleansing fire, which, by the way, the scriptures actually have an image like that in 2 Peter 3. That they actually, that's what I believe. God's going to bring fire upon the earth. He's going to be a cleansing fire, but it's also a fire judgment in that context as well. It's going to judge in the same way that the water judged in the days of Noah.
Yeah.
But there are those who have interpreted Jesus' words. I want to say is it Matthew or Mark, where where John the Baptist said that he will the winnowing fork is in his hand. And am I right about that? Do you know which text I am? Nobody's even looking it up right now, so it doesn't matter.
Sorry, Jeff, did you say something?
I said something about the Bible, Andy. It'd be great if you put your book down there for a minute.
I'm looking at you, man.
You just
I've enjoyed
revisiting
being
some
here.
of your own words there?
Yeah.
No, there's a passage where John the
3.
Baptist. Do you know the actual text?
It's in Matthew 3. The winnowing fork is in his hand, and he will clear his threshing floor, gathering his wheat into the barn and burning up the chaff with an unquenchable fire.
So there are people who take that text to be a positive thing.
Yeah.
They're going to burn up the two things that Jesus is going to do. Is he's going to what was the first one? The winnowing fork is in his hand. Did you already get rid of it?
I already got rid of it.
You just closed it down.
Boom.
Okay. The winnowing fork is in his hand, and they take that last phrase of fire to be a positive thing, but the context of the passage sure seems to be, no, what Jesus is going to do is
Gathering his wheat in the barn.
yeah, he's
and then
going to
burning the
gather
chaff.
those who are his, and he's going to judge the rest. That's the way the language seems to be working, but they take it to be as a positive thing. So I've actually heard people pray along the lines of that text, inviting God's fire in so that it would burn up the dross or burn up the chaff or burn up, you know what I mean? In their life. What they mean is in their life. So
exactly.
I mean, their intent is right, but it's not necessarily the way the scriptures talk. Fire is an image for judgment in the Bible.
Yeah.
And so when we ask for the fire, we want more fire, or we name our church after the fire, it is not necessarily, people don't do it with an eye toward maybe a right biblical reading. They do it because they're trying to convey something about how they want God to make them pure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think like 9 times out of 10 when fire is used in a song, it's probably not the best image, or they're accessing a biblical image that doesn't mean exactly what they think it means. Of course, then there's songs like Build Your Kingdom Here, Set Your Church on Fire, Win This Nation Back. So on one hand, yes, okay, purify your church, make us holy. On the other hand, again, this comes to, new people come into our church doors and they hear us, we sound like a bunch of pyromaniacs.
Yeah, but I think they understand the language. I actually think that they understand the language of fire more as a passion thing than they would a judgment thing.
Yes, which is why I take less issue with the fire image as opposed to something like the boyfriend image.
What if you combined them and you set your boyfriend on fire?
Gosh.
Would that be?
That's an option.
Well, I'm just wondering if that would be the kind of song that you would like people to submit to you.
I think we're going to do that. We're gonna go into a songwriting session after this, and it'll be glorious.
Can I just bring up a quick beef here?
Yes.
And why not?
Beef away, man.
Let me do that. One of the things that can frustrate me is I get it when there can be, frustration over modern, worship music, and is it conveying a message that is biblical, but at the same time there's also this challenge. Okay, but is it also conveying the worship of my heart as well, right? I mean, is it meaningful to me? One of the things though here's where my beef comes in, is I get that whole struggle, but I feel like with a lot of Christians, they'll think, well, listen, I know how to solve this problem. You just got to go back, because there's those old songs, and those old ones all got their theology right.
What you need to do is raise your Ebenezer.
Exactly. Because if
you raise your Ebenezer, hither by his help you'll come.
And so I have two concerns here. One is I can't tell you the number of hymns I've sung that I have theological issue with, and two, that I have no idea what they're even saying.
Well,
right?
especially that's why I bring up the Ebenezer, right?
Right.
I mean, people are like, I didn't know Scrooge was alive then. But there's language that we use all the time, right?
Yeah, because some people think you can get away from this whole contemporary worship challenges by just going back. Well, no, you can't.
Yeah, that same song, "Let Your Goodness Like a Fetter, Bind My Wandering Heart to Thee." Have you guys been using the fetters lately? Have you?
I
Fetters
upgraded.
But I mean, you're right in that sense. And that's why some people try to change the language of those songs. We still sing some of the older versions because they actually are far more poetic than some of the modern ones. But yeah, you make a good point. This is one of the challenges with worship music, right? You want to judge them by the intent that people have. My only caveat or change to that is that actually I believe that the church's theology is formed by its hymnody, by what we sing. Because it gets in your head, right?
Yeah, and that's what I say to our worship leaders when they're picking songs. I'm like, Jeff can preach great, but like a week later, ask people what his points were, and they might struggle to come up with one. They might. I mean, if they are really diligent keeping notes, whatever, they might be able to rattle off your points.
Right.
But they'll probably be able to recite an entire chorus,
Yeah, well, they'll sing it.
like word for word.
A catchy tune
Yeah.
will just get in their heads and recite it. And so the way that God is spoken of in those things is very formative.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, it's sort of cyclical, right? I mean, it feeds in on itself.
Yeah.
I mean, you have people who are formed by a particular image of God, and then they write songs about that, and that reinforces those images back to the church so that we write more songs about it. And so unfortunately, I don't want to lay at worship music the fault of all the problems in the church, but it is complicit. I mean, we are complicit in some of the stuff that we've written. The way we've talked about God, there was a period there where we are not very declarative about Him, that a lot of the songs that we were singing were a lot of I's and me's and that sort of stuff, which, is great. Like Andy, you said, it touches the heart, right? I need you, Lord, I need you, which is a lovely song, I think. And it conveys something really deep in all of us, right? People raise their hands on that one.
Yeah.
But
Don't you
it's
think
not
though this is
declarative
where
as much as
this
others.
is where the challenge lies as well, that some songs are going to be more meaningful to you than another person. For example, Jonathan and I disagree on the song "Good Good Father." He hates it. I love it. And for me, having grown up with no dad and
Right.
in a broken family, the song "Good Good Father" speaks to me. Even that he's saying "good good" twice, right? Get 3 times.
I think
and we'll have a
Jonathan's-
trinity. Like for me, it speaks volumes to me. So I love that song. But I get the fact that Jonathan.
So if you
that-
said "good, good, good Father," you'd be talking about the
it's,
Trinity.
yeah, it's all even
What?
all the better. No, just
Andy.
no. I'm just joking. But some people don't like that he says "good good" twice, right?
That's not my issue with it. But
No, I know that's not your issue. Your issue is when he talks about speaking to you in the dead of night and
yeah,
and,
no, it's not speaking to. It's the tender whisper of love.
right
in the dead of night.
right.
Tender whisper of love in the dead of night. He
Don't love he doesn't love the imagery.
it's
Right.
yeah.
But I think isn't that part of the challenge though, that some songs are going to be more meaningful to certain people given their situation than others.
Yeah, I just think that I would love us to take the images that Scripture uses and sing about them, and try to convey God in His fullness according to the images that He gives us to talk about it.
Agreed.
I don't want to put a big pity party up, but it is hard. It is hard for worship leaders. A lot of our, right?
Often.
Oh, no, whatever.
It's really hard.
But it's
you.
hard for our worship leaders because you're taking into account the people who come to your services, and you have to kind of find a balance. You have to find a balance of songs that are going to touch the heart. Lord, I need you, but also be declarative about who God is, and also be theologically astute and robust. And yet you want to also have songs that are simple that children can sing along to, right? And all this Ebenezer and Fetters and stuff that they won't be like, what on earth is this?
Yeah.
Or keys that people can sing
So,
along to.
Right, and
Jonathan,
also musical keys.
Let
yeah,
us affirm you. Well, let me affirm you. You do a great
love you,
job. You
Jonathan.
actually you do a wonderful job at
you.
striking that balance, and we're thankful for you. On the flip side, I don't know how it is that you work full time and only choose 6 songs every week.
And could we get a little more good Father?
Why do you have to sit in meetings all day for that? Greg,
maybe if we just shortened your sermon to 10 minutes, and then we could do
Then
10
we could
songs,
sing 10 songs, and you could just have sing the same 10
rotation
songs
of 12.
every week.
Unbelievable.
But make sure you show up early so you can practice them for the 30,000th time.
Okay, so how many songs would your worship teams have on their roster that you work through?
Okay, so that's actually a good question.
you.
So
Thank you, John.
a lot of churches we go to,
You might need
I've
to use
visited-
both hands to count these.
It is worth you
No.
being here, Greg.
It is.
I was wondering that
Yeah.
earlier.
A lot of churches we go to, actually, what they'll do in order to maintain a certain level of quality is they'll actually have a repertoire of something like 15 to 20 songs, and they'll only do those 15 to 20 songs in a rotation. What that means is those 15 to 20 songs are on point. The band is tight. It's professional. They hardly have to practice. And then what they'll do is they'll take out one song and add a new song over time, right? But it's still always just that pool. Our pool of songs we pick from is huge. We have old hymns all the way to those songs from the 90s, 2000s kind of. And you all know what I'm talking about. The classics. borderline hymns, but like.
Do we
not
still
hymns.
have "Open the Eyes of My Heart, Lord"? Is
We have
still
that
on the
on our.
roster?
Yeah, it is there. Yeah. So, and then we have a
Remember that
lot
one?
of a lot
Oh, yeah.
of new songs.
We have the
and
complete works of Brian Dirksen on file.
for real, we do. So no, like the truth is, we have a lot of songs that are in our repertoire.
Okay.
So,
can,
is-
good father on
I'm
I'm going to
repertoire?
ask you a quick
It is in the
question. I would
repertoire.
like all of us to answer this, okay? At great risk of getting emails from the
boy.
6 people who listen to this podcast.
meant
What
also-
is
oh,
your
7. My
although-
wife will listen now because I'm on this one. She'll
Although the
listen to it.
correlation between people who listen to this and people who care about worship music
Yeah.
is probably 1-to-1.
Okay, so here we go. I want your favorite
Oh boy.
song. Andy, like worship song, Andy.
I was
Like
thinking
he's
Cyndi
writing,
Lauper.
he's writing Back in
Come
Black
on.
down.
We have
Stop. I want
500
worship song, and then I want your least favorite worship song. All right, favorite, Greg.
Before the throne of God above.
That's a good one.
We sang it at our wedding, and I've always loved that song.
Andy,
Oh, so I'm doing my favorite first.
were you not listening just a second ago?
Well, I
Was
thought we
that-
were gonna do both. Like first,
well,
your
we
favorite,
were, but
then
like
your-
we decided to do the favorite first.
All right, fine. Well, like I said, I like Good Father.
Really, that's like the number one.
Well,
All time, like right now, you could
see, the
pick
number-
any song from any time. Good Father is the answer to
the
that
number
question.
one, changes on me. It's not. It's not a consistent.
Jonathan, you do realize that you're like killing him by not playing that song.
Yeah, I know. He's in Westcourt. It's not a big deal.
Okay, what do you, Jonathan?
Oh, I don't know. That's hard.
Really, you can't pick one.
I'm having a tough time. I think
This is why it's a full-time job for you.
this is why it's a full
'Cause
time
you
job.
sit
I'm
and
just
stare.
like, how do I pick? No, I think one of my favorites. I mean, I'm kind of the newer ones that we're starting to do. I really like. So it's one of the reasons why I'm doing them because I really like them.
Okay,
so
pick
like one like 1,000 Tongues. I really am liking that song. One that's I've actually liked for a while is I Will Follow. I really like that one too.
Yeah, John Guerrero.
John Guerrero.
Guerrero.
Yeah.
It's a very good song.
Great tune.
No, the answer is Psalm 62.
Like Aaron Keys.
Yeah.
That is a good tune.
Okay. I can't remember how it goes right now.
My
but I-
soul finds rest
It's in
in
God.
God.
That's what it is.
alone. It's a great song.
Least favorite song, Greg.
My least favorite line of songs is when heaven meets earth like a wet sloppy kiss.
Sloppy wet kiss.
Sloppy
Yeah.
wet kiss. How
You can
he
just
loves
change it to unforeseen kiss.
Yeah,
how he loves
it
it.
doesn't matter.
David Crowder, man.
David Crowder.
How dare you?
No, I think David Crowder is the unforeseen kiss. It's John Mark McMillan who did the sloppy wet kiss.
Well, John Mark McMillan needs to step his game up. 'cause
John Mark
that
McMillan is a very creative
that
writer.
is well, yeah. Sloppy wet kiss is very creative.
Sloppy
Yeah.
wet writer.
I can't imagine how he thought of that one.
Okay, Andy.
Okay, mine. Listen, you might have to edit this out. I don't know, but it's got to be Gaither's "He Touched Me."
Right.
I'm sorry, but if I'm gonna say
That's exactly it.
my least favorite, that's the one.
Yeah.
It's,
Yeah, no, honestly,
it's
I
brutal.
think you just won the competition. Okay, Jonathan,
This isn't good. This is a bad idea for me.
you want to
You know what?
pass? You going to
I'm
pass on it?
I'll probably do a cliche my least favorite song is probably "Draw Me Close." The lyrics are "Draw me close to you, never let me go. I lay it all down again
Oh,
to hear
yeah,
you
that's-
say that I'm your
that's-
friend.
that's-
You are my desire. No one else will do.
You don't love it.
You're all I want. You're all I ever needed. Help me know you are near.
What is the
Whatever.
secret place one?
That's In the Secret.
Yeah, that's
It's
not a
called
good
In the
one either.
Secret.
That's a
Well-
Dirksen one, isn't it?
No,
No, that's
That's your
Andy.
least
I
favorite.
forget.
Is that
Draw Me
Andy?
Close. Yeah.
No.
Why
Just
don't you
Draw
like-
Me Close. Draw Me Close is the epitome of a song that if you took all the lyrics and put it in like secular music station, it would fit right in.
No,
There's
got
absolutely
it.
nothing about God.
Okay, so the answer is everything done by the Gaithers.
You Gaithers haters.
Oh, listen,
you
if
better
you're out there,
believe it.
listen, I'm going to get emails because honestly, there are people in our church who go and they listen to the Gaither thing. We're just going to have to agree to disagree, okay?
I think
I'm just not a fan.
What are you playing?
These are Gaithers. What are you doing?
But listen to those tight harmonies.
is that it.
Yeah, man,
Yep.
he touched me.
Okay.
Oh man. There.
Oh, that's it. That's the one. That's the line.
We don't need to hear it. We know what it says. Okay.
Can we just get it real
That's
quick?
exactly it. So why does that bother you?
Do I need to explain it?
Yes.
No, you don't.
Thank you.
Right, so we have another question. Moving on from Jonathan's domination of this podcast
Wasn't
with
my
his
idea.
personal interests.
Wasn't
You
my
can
idea.
leave now.
It was an I pretty basically could.
No, I'm glad
It
you
was
All
an
right,
interrogation.
one last question. This one was sent in just this past week, and the question has to do with how, what is like a baseline measurement for what it looks like to be a man of God? The questioner was asking this question because the motivation behind it was they see all these examples in culture and stuff of what a man looks like, and it's pretty, the man's man of hunting, camping, all
that's-
that kind of stuff.
that's the answer, right?
So how do
A
we
manly man.
how do we help people, men in particular, get an understanding of what a man of God looks like that doesn't just appeal to like shooting wild animals?
So can I take a step back for a minute and make a cultural comment?
Yeah.
That Andy got a chance to make his rant for a minute.
All right.
This was a rant
Fair
that
enough.
might actually get me offside with some people, perhaps. I actually think that the Christian church is in some way complicit for unintentionally pushing some young men toward homosexuality and transgenderism. And that might sound crazy, but what I mean by that is we have defined manhood in such narrow terms that if I don't fit in it, if I grow up and I'm a little more effeminate, or if I grow up and I like art, or if I grow up and I, at some point, prefer the company of women, all of a sudden I have broken some manhood. Like, instead of sitting around watching like a professional football game, drinking beer and farting,
The
that
Bundys.
I somehow have broken some cardinal rule regarding what it means to be a man. And so I start thinking to myself, especially in a culture like ours today, maybe I'm not a man. Maybe actually what I am is a woman trapped in a man's body. Or maybe I actually, because I like women, I'm more like them. And maybe I'm not going to be transgendered, but I'm going to fit that kind of effeminate homosexual stereotype in some regards. And so people end up slotting into it. Now, you might hear me as saying that there are all sorts of discussions to be had regarding whether somebody is born with a proclivity toward that stuff and other. I'm not in any way denying that is the case in many cases. I think we also recognize that there is an aspect of nurture in these things, right? So there is a nature and there is a nurture in these things. And I think the Christian church, because we have limited what manhood looks like, there's a lot of men who don't feel like they belong, and then they get a hearing from other subcultures around, and they end up pushing themselves into other things. Now, I'm speaking because I know men who have done that. I actually know some women, because they don't understand what womanhood is. Maybe they're a little bit more masculine in their approach to their demeanor. So all of a sudden, someone calls them butch when they're 13 years old, and they end up thinking that that's the truth about them, when it might be or might not be, right? So I hope you understand what I'm saying.
I hear you.
I think that this issue is bigger culturally than actually we think, right?
Absolutely, it is.
So you can
And
hear from
people
my comments
confused.
that I actually believe that manhood is a very broad category. So is womanhood is a very broad category. That the things that you're going to show in a man isn't necessarily that you like to hunt and fish and shoot stuff and fart or whatever. That I actually think that being a man is much wider than that.
Wouldn't you say then, Jeff, and this is something I wanted to bring up as well, is that I think people, they miss the adjective part of this whole thing. Because what we're asking, you'll hear often people, well, what does it mean to be a man? But it seems like, in particularly this listener is asking the question, what does it mean to be a godly man? And now we're talking about something different here. That, you read in Genesis, right? God made male and female. And there are different aspects of what that means to be a male and female. We could talk about that biologically. There's difference between a man and a woman. And there are different roles between men and women. As much as I want to bear children, that's not going to happen. And as much as I'd love my kids to view me in the way that they view their mom, that's not going to happen, right? Now, there's this other category, though, of what it means to be a godly man. I'll stop there because I think
I'm just going to read the text. To be honest, when you talk about godly men, I think that when you go to the scriptures, there is when Paul is describing the qualifications for elder, that's what he's doing. He's basically saying, okay, what is the bare minimum that should be evident in the lives of the leaders in your church, right? And in Paul's view, he's referring to men.
That's right.
Okay, so he describes what that looks like, and so you get a passage like 1 Peter 3. The saying is Timothy 3. Saying is trustworthy. If anyone aspires to the office of overseer, he desires a noble task. Therefore, an overseer must be. It's a necessary thing for them to be above reproach, husband of one wife. That, by the way, that doesn't mean that a godly man needs to be married. It means that if he's married, he has only eyes for his wife, right? The husband, he's a one-woman man, is the way the Greek reads there. The husband of one wife, sober-minded, okay? Self-controlled, respectable, hospitable. By the way, doesn't the self-controlled, the culture's viewpoint on manliness is not self-controlled.
It's
It's
opposite.
giving yourself over to every kind of excess, whether that be porn, whether that be alcohol or drugs or whatever it is, dude. Just experience all your manly desires. Self-controlled, respectable, hospitable, able to teach, meaning if you qualify that by Titus 1, that you know your doctrine. Not a drunkard, not violent, but gentle, which is, sorry, I think about that in relation to the way that our culture views the guys. If you want to be a real guy, you dress in camo and shoot stuff. Yeah. Not that it's anything wrong with going out hunting. I don't have a problem with that. But to extend that image over the whole of your life, right? That you're kind of careless and inhospitable to people, right? Hard. I'm a hard man. Especially, I used to live in New Zealand. That was the way that every guy had to be hard. He's hard. He's a hard man, as if that's a really good thing. Well, biblically, it's actually not. Not a drunkard, not violent, but gentle, not quarrelsome, not a lover of money. Dude, sorry, a lot of us love money. He must manage his own household well, with all dignity, keeping his children submissive. For if someone does not know how to manage his own household, how will he care for God's church? He must not be a recent convert, may become puffed up with conceit and fall into the condemnation of the devil. Moreover, he must be well thought of by outsiders, so that he may not fall into disgrace, into the snare of the devil.
We can add on to that too, by the way.
Yeah, without a doubt.
That, in Titus chapter 2, Paul goes on in verse 6 to talk about, speaking to young men, he says, likewise urge young men to be self-controlled, show yourself in all respect to be a model of good works, and in your teaching show integrity, dignity, and sound speech that cannot be condemned, so that your opponent may be put to shame.
Right.
This is what a godly man looks like.
Right.
This is...
It's not the tone of your voice. It's not how you carry yourself, or whether or not you like art, or whether or not you prefer the color pink to other colors. It has nothing to do with it.
Right.
These character traits are the things that mark men, godly Christian men.
Hospitable is an interesting one on that list too, from just a cultural perspective, and some people might want to attribute that more to the feminine side, that the guys are the more hard edge ones. They're not the super welcoming ones. They're the ones who are going to do the bad cop stuff, but not the hospitable stuff, not the open up their home and their time and their energy serving people rather than just sitting on the couch and expecting to be served, but they're the ones getting up and
think about the young. Think about the way my kids are in like junior high school age now, right? And you see you see they haven't learned yet to hide their I don't know how to say that. They're raw in the way that
they're barbarians.
Well, they're raw in the way that they act culturally, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So here they've learned from the culture certain ways of acting, and they just do them. So if you go and you look at pictures, for example, of boys basketball, volleyball, soccer, whatever teams, just look at the photos of the guys. There will not be a single one smiling, right? They stand there with their hands behind their back and their chests puffed out and their chins sort of tucked back in their necks, and they kind of look down the bridge of their noses at the camera. And the idea is, don't mess with me, right? And this is the way that if you walk into the schools, a lot of the guys will carry themselves as they walk by you. It's this sort of like stand up straight, hard, inhospitable approach, which is not what scriptures call us to. They actually call us to a welcoming, not preening. You're not trying to prove that you're the baddest dog on the block and make everybody afraid of you. You're actually trying to welcome people in.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very different approach.
Good. Any other comments on that question from our listener?
Yeah, one more. I am the baddest dog on the block.
Yeah.
Like you guys know that though, right?
I heard you're pretty rough and tumble.
Thanks. We appreciate that.
Well, I didn't want you to get the wrong idea that all of a sudden talking hospitable and stuff that you guys would feel like,
Welcome
you
or
could,
anything?
that you could
Heaven
mess
forbid.
with me because
No, you're a we Paul Siemens and I sit across from you, and regularly you'll eat things like coconut clusters, and you'll say things like, "Would you like one?"
it's actually cashew clusters that I'm eating.
What did I say?
Yeah, coconut. Although
Oh, sorry. Would that
I'm
be
just
good?
going
That'd
to
be
tell
good.
you if there were coconut clusters there, I would be eating them.
That would be fantastic.
Anyone out there who
Kirkland, get on it.
do in Canada? Those of you Canadian boys here, do you guys have the Girl Scouts here?
Yep.
Girl Scout cookies.
Yep.
Do you guys know these? What are the
They came
Girl
to my
Scout,
house
The Girl
yesterday.
Scout macaroons. What are they called? Samoas. My goodness. Well, that's what we need. We need some people who are linked in with the Girl Scouts to hook us up with Samoas. They're unbelievable.
All right, you've heard it, people.
Why can't they have chocolate and coconut on
what's your
top of
What's
them?
your preferred? Is it just one kind of?
Yeah, they're called
Oh,
Samoas.
okay.
Some people go for the thin mint or whatever they're called on that, but I'm like, nah, that's not male enough for me. Sorry,
You can't have
I'm
a-
making fun
you
of
can't
that
have a
because
thin
that's
mint.
He's in
the
love.
point
He's in
that I was
love. He's in love.
thinking.
All right, guys.
Just rub it on your cheek.
If you have any questions you want to text, or you can't text us, you can email us, extra@northview.org. That'd be great. And we will read your question online at some point.
Okay,
What do you guys left?
nothing. You've done a great job today, Greg. Let
That's
me
not
affirm
true.
you in
I
your
don't
work.
think that's true.
So glad
Thank
you were
you.
here.
Thanks, guys. See you at church.